I think there is a deep connection most Star Wars fans have missed. Today's video is going to be a bit different because we're going to be combining some Star Wars news with some speculation which I didn't think I'd really be talking about, but then I realized something. Despite the century-and-a-half gap, there is a major link between the helmeted Sith, Snoke, and the Knights of Ren, but it might not be what you think. And we're going to draw upon some canon comics, as well as comments made by Leslie Headland, to make this point. But before we dive into this, and a further analysis of Sith in the context of the Acolyte versus unbalanced dark side Force users, we do have a bit of news. Star Wars' social media accounts have been really pushing the marketing initiative for the Leslie Headland show. And to our massive surprise, a wonderful video was released. Amanda Stenberg, who is playing the twins Osha and May, is also a seasoned violinist, and it was revealed in a new promo, the legendary John Williams, the man who made the soundtrack to Star Wars itself, arranged 2 solo violin pieces of classic Star Wars themes just for her. Now could you imagine, and this is me maybe taking it too far, over speculating and being too optimistic, but just imagine this. Maybe John Williams, just like he did for the Kenobi show, in spite of there being a separate composer, may have written a couple of pieces for this series, including one of the themes. Michael Abels is credited for being the composer of The Acolyte, but there is the possibility John Williams was involved. That might be something they're telling us, but again, it could have just been for the couple of pieces Amanda plays in this promo shot. Really awesome nonetheless, and she is a true Star Wars fan, and I'm certainly excited for her performance in the show. In other Acolyte updates, it appears as though various countries around the world are holding cinematic screenings of episodes 1 and 2, and from this we finally have a combined runtime for the first couple of episodes, 95 minutes. That means on average, the episodes are between 40 and 45 minutes in length, which is kind of in line with what Leslie Headland said. So on to a big revelation about the helmeted Sith. I think the reason the helmeted Sith in the trailer looks like a Knight of Ren is because maybe he was the original Ren, and they're finally going to expand on the origins of this group. This could be a Sith cultist who follows the way of Ren, a philosophy older than the sequel trilogy, and even predating the prequel era. So in essence, the story of the Acolyte is not just a prequel to the Phantom Menace, but sets into motion many concepts later in the timeline in the sequel trilogy in a way that explains concepts episodes 7, 8 and 9 failed to elaborate on. While much further down the timeline Kylo and the Knights turned Ren into a title, their cult is based on an actual character named Ren. Nevertheless, almost nothing is known about the very first Ren. By 3 ABY, a fake Ren took over the title and became the leader of the Knights. Kylo ended up killing this Ren, taking his place, but 150 years prior, we might have had the first Ren, which we're going to see in the show. The original Ren is described as a mysterious, evil, chaotic character. Whoever this Ren was, they were clearly a dark side user so powerful the Knights carried on their legacy for centuries. And what I'm saying is, this nameless, helmeted figure could have been this first Ren. The comic series The Rise of Kylo Ren alludes to an ancient order of the Ren, who had a way of life which differed from the traditional view of the Sith Order, and even from the rules of Darth Bane himself. They were an independent, mobile group, whose aim was to spread chaos and violence wherever they went. They opposed the likes of Palpatine in the original trilogy, and between the events of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, allied themselves with Lady Kira, who tried to overthrow the Emperor. But in terms of the philosophy, here is a very interesting excerpt. You don't follow me, friend. You follow this. The Ren. The Ren doesn't stop to worry about what it's burning, or the right or wrong of it, or the goals it might achieve. The Ren just is. It lives, and it consumes, and it doesn't apologize. It is its nature and nothing else. I believe in that principle on a deep, deep level. In fact, I've dedicated my life to it. You could do that too. Bathe yourself in the shadow of darkness. Fight its battles, preserve its tools, eat what it sends you. All we need is a death. And herein lies another fundamental part of the Knights of Ren philosophy. Through brutal strength, membership was gained through ritual sacrifice. They weren't concerned with morally good or bad, but instead, pure appetite. A prospective knight had to choose a worthy target to kill. The the completion of this rite was referred to as a good death. And this could be what the helmeted figure asks of May. Force sensitivity was another qualification for joining the Knights, who only accepted Force-sensitive beings due to their inherent ability to connect to the dark side of the Force, which they worshipped in a very different way to the Sith. In the comics, they're labelled as barbaric marauders, but very little is known about their origins. Did they originate as a subfaction of the Sith, a Sith called Ren, who formed his own path? Similar to the way Force users like Balin are not traditional Jedi or Sith, the first Ren may have sought out a unique, never-before-heard-of path. And another reason I think there is a connection to the Knights of Ren is because of Snoke's great interest in them. Snoke revered them as if they came from a respectable lineage of the dark side. And given that Snoke was created and manipulated by Palpatine, his Force essence, this makes sense. Maybe at their origins they were perceived as a holy dark side cult, adhering to a rather loose and wild interpretation of the Force's will. What I'm trying to say is they didn't hold back. And if the Acolyte's villain is a founding member of the Knights of Ren, along with his pure rage, they may finally explain who Kylo Ren was modelling himself after in the sequel trilogy. It also explains why the show is so fast-paced and has a lot of acrobatic martial arts. And this adds depth to the villains of the sequel trilogy, and after all, it coincides with Leslie Headland being inspired by The Last Jedi. Some interesting food for thought, and his master might be a traditional Sith, but the Acolyte and the Apprentice, because we were told about a 3-system hierarchy, could be a different kind of character. So before The Force Awakens, when Kylo asked Snoke about the Knights of Ren, he said this: "You were asking me about the Knights of Ren. Perhaps the Knights would be a good stop on your journey. There is only so much I can teach you. At the very least, you would no longer need to deny yourself in the way Luke Skywalker required. But as for Ben Solo, Jedi to be, the Knights of Ren might not be interested in him. The Knights of Ren sought raw power, no strings holding them back. If you are to prove yourself worthy, contacting the Knights will be your task. A way to prove yourself worthy of Ren. Think of everything you know about them. You met them once, did you not? Begin there. They will not hold back. Everything in front of them they believe to be theirs. The legendary Knights of Ren, fearless, adherents of the dark. The ideological differences between them and the Jedi could not be further apart. Luke Skywalker once described them as clumsy, untrained. The blades of Ren are not worthy enough to fight the blade of a Jedi. But that is not the way Ren saw it. Ren told Luke, "You said you could sense the shadow in all of us. That's right, we've all got it. But you know your apprentice does too. Powerful. I can feel it." And in a way, if you're comparing the Knights of Ren philosophy to the helmeted Sith, it makes sense why he would try to lure in someone like May to become his apprentice, to join the path of Ren, which is a path of the shadow, because for whatever reason, her anger is what drives her in this show, and from that, she may tap into abilities she didn't know she had. So many mysteries, and this show could be the opportunity to show us the very first, or one of the first Rens. And according to a rumour by My Time to Shine Hello, the masked mysterious Sith is Manny Jacinto's Quimia, which we had suspected for many months. Could just be a red flag, and there is a deeper mystery because keep in mind, this show, labelled as a Jedi drama, has a lot of twists. Nothing is as it seems.